good evening, or good afternoon, or good day, depending on what part of the world you are in. I am in California. I'm Tad. I assume everything is going to go well technically. Let me know if there is any issue, because just as I was putting this online, I got some little message something went wrong, but it went forward as though nothing had gone wrong. So anyway, I'm hoping that you can hear me, and I know you can see me because I showed up on the Facebook page when I was checking the feed. So anyway, but I'm assuming that you can hear me okay. And if that is the case, then I welcome you, and I am very pleased to be with you on this Sunday evening. The end of one of the worst weeks of my life, for reasons that many of you already know. And I'm not going to go into a great deal of details, just it's been a tough time for the family, but everybody has pitched in together and done their best to help each other out, for which I am certainly grateful. Not that I was surprised by that, because I have been lucky enough to be a member of a very, very kind, good-hearted family all my life, and starting with my parents. And I know that my mom would have expected nothing less than for everybody to pitch in and help each other out, as they have. So anyway, so here I am, and there you are, and we are going to be reading from the Dragonbone chair, which is what we've been doing now for a while, and we're actually moving along. We're getting closer to halfway through. Well, about a third, maybe even a bit more. So, excuse me, itchy nose. I have actually I should turn it off. I have a air filter that I have to put on before I do these readings, because the cat danders up the office something fierce. And even though I'm not allergic to it at a certain point, especially when I'm reading, it starts to get really itchy around the nose and the throat and the lungs. She can't help it. It's not her fault. I brush her every day. So, we try to keep it down as much as possible. But cats are cats. And anyway, but I've now turned it off. So that little noise won't be going on in the background. That doesn't mean you won't hear other noises. I don't know if any of you detected it last night, who were people who are listening now, probably listening to this when it's been recorded and you're listening to it that way. But you may have detected a kind of a weird whistly snore noise coming from very close by, like about 1.5 feet away from the microphone. That was the cat. She is a plump cat, and she does kind of snore a bit when she's gotten all comfy. So anyway, let me first, I'm going to go down the list and say hello to the people who are here already. And then we will continue with the reading, etc. I don't have a whole lot to say. I mentioned in the broadcast, or the reading, or whatever you want to call it, last night, that I am finishing up Navigator's Children, despite all the other things going on, the crises of great and small sorts. It's a refuge for me of sorts. It's a way that I can get away from all the other things that are happening that are either stressing me or making me sad. I strongly recommend some kind of creative work to those to people in general. It's a really nice thing to have something you can work on during hard times. And so as a result, I'm still chipping away and kind of getting near the ending now. I'm almost finished up with this kind of second to last big series of set pieces, and then I've got one more shorter series of set pieces, which will be a couple of chapters, and then just kind of the echoes, the reverberations, the Pink Floyd sound effects at the end of the album, as it were. So that's what's going on with me. Excuse me for the weird noises. I can feel the cat dander already now that I've turned the air filter off. So with that, I'm going to go to see who's here and check in and say hello. So the first off is Claudia. Hello, Claudia. Good evening to you. Mr. Unangst. Okay. That's Jerry. Hi, Jerry. Medardo Landon Mazadueñas, my friend, amigo mío. Es muy bueno verte. And my father's doing pretty well, all things considered. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell with my dad because he's not the most fulsome person in terms of telling you what's on his mind. In fact, we've all kind of made jokes about it in the family. I have, during the course of several book tours, because I dedicated the Otherland books to Dad, and for the first several novels, he wasn't even aware of it. So people, have heard me tell stories about my dad and the entertaining kind of mad scientist type that he is. I'm not mad in the sense of like he's trying to create life to create a race of people to conquer the world or anything, but more just like he's usually off in his own, not even world, he's in his own galaxy sometimes, and it's very difficult to get information out of him as to what's actually going on. But under the circumstances, I think he's doing pretty well. And of course, we're all doing our best to support him. But thank you for asking. Emily, hello. London, Ontario. I haven't been in Ontario for years and years and years. But I'd love to get back there sometime soon. Anyway, it sounds like a nice weekend indeed. So thank you for coming back to join us. Or, well, not coming back to join us, but coming back and joining us. Lori, good evening. I'm doing well, thank you, Lori, or, as well as can be done under the circumstances. Barban, hello, good evening to you. And Pierre, hello, hello. A beacon of hope. Oh my God, Pierre, that's worrying. If I'm your beacon of hope, that definitely is worrying me. I hope you're okay. If there's anything I can do, drop me a direct message or whatever the hell we call them on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. I mean, anyway, if there's anything I can do, let me know. Ray says, would I consider reading other authors' works? I certainly would. My issue is that in the long run, I'd like to be a bit more ambitious with what I do online, which would be more than just reading. I want to talk about stuff that's important to me. Not necessarily political stuff, but, things like creative stuff that's important to me and why I like certain things and why I think other things are overrated or underrated or, that kind of issue. So as a result, I'm not sure I want to get too locked into reading forever. But the other thing too is that, of course, before I'm going to read somebody else's stuff, I have to make sure I have permission or that it's in public domain or, things like that. So that's a whole set of other questions that I would have to grapple with before I started doing something like that. But I'm not automatically opposed to it, And certainly I think if I wind up doing some kind of a broadcast, podcast, whatever you want to call it, about the things that really move me and interest me, one of the things I would be doing would be sharing excerpts from books I love or records I love or whatever, stuff like that. So I'm not opposed to sharing other people's stuff at all. I just have always, especially during the pandemic, just didn't want to make things any more difficult than they had to be. So, because I'm still trying to write books and be a dad and all those other things. And so as a result, I kind of put anything complicated to one side and said, I know I have permission to read my books because I hold the copyright. So that's why I've been reading my own work. I don't have to worry about offending anybody or cheating anybody in any way. Potentially, I guess I theoretically could be cheating myself in the sense that someone might say, well, why should I buy it when I can listen to Tad read the whole thing? And if that's where you're at, okay. I'm like the library. I'm just making it available. So, but you do notice I'm only reading the first book of most of these things. Because I'm not stupid. I'm just open-minded. Anyway, so what else we got? Penny. Hello, Penny. Good to see you. Ron. Hello, my friend. Thank you for checking in. Jared. Good to see you, too. Oh, it's your birthday. Well, happy birthday, Jared. I hope it's been a really good one. Or at least a pretty good one. I obviously have no way of knowing, but if you want to let us know, I'd be happy to hear. And I hope it's been a really good one. Carl, hello. Good to have you back. I haven't heard from you in a while, so very nice. Joanna, hello, hello. Safe and well. Well, we're safe and fairly well, so. James, as always, good to see you. Susan, hello, hello. Thank you very much for the kind words. The family is devastated. I mean, as you can assume, I'm sure some of you out there have lost a parent. I don't like that expression. I was talking about that the other night. It reminds me too much of the importance of being earnest. Where's that great line from Lady Bracknell, I think it is, where she says, after hearing the tale of woe, where she says to lose one parent is a tragedy. To lose two begins to sound like carelessness. Yeah, we didn't lose my mom. She died, and that's pretty devastating for the family because she was definitely the matriarch and center of the family, and was my first best friend when I was a tiny little kid growing up and all that stuff. So but we're all doing as well as can be expected because again, we had a good strong foundation, and that certainly a lot of the credit for that goes to her. Who else? But anyway, so thank you for the kind words, Susan. Felina, hello, hello. Sunday has been pretty good. Although Deb was gone hanging out with my dad for a lot of it, so I missed her, but she's back now. So, Tracy, hello, good to see you too. And again, Joanna, thank you for the kind words. Ray, hello, Ray, good to see you. Chris, hello, hello. Kristen, hello, hello, hello. All done with Into the Narrow Dark. Gonna go crazy waiting for Navigator's Children. I'll try not to make you wait too long, and I will do my best. I promise you that there are things happening within the first few chapters of Navigator's Children that, unless I am very wrong, will gobsmack some of my readers, maybe all my readers. That's my hope, of course. I want people to be surprised or like, wait, really? So we'll see. But I hope you don't have to wait too long for it. As I said at the beginning of the show, I'm poodling along towards the ending and almost getting there. That's poodle, by the way, not like the dog. That's poodle, like P-O-O-T-L-E, poodle, which God knows where that comes from. The house at Pooh Corner or something. It's a word. I don't know if it's a real word, but it's a word that's been in my family for a while to sort of poodle around. Anyway, it's kind of a cross between several words, so we probably made it up somewhere. Anyway, Kelly, good evening. No, we're not bothered by the fires, although when there are fires that are even reasonably close to us, which this one isn't right now, and the wind seems to have been blowing the other direction, but when there are fires, we definitely feel them, and two of my kids, one who has asthma and one who has a pulmonary condition, both would have real problems on some of the very smoky days. So, but that hasn't been a problem at the moment. And then just today we had a storm and a downpour and all that stuff, which has been very good for the fires, I'm sure. I don't know. I haven't checked the news yet, but it has to have had some beneficial effect. And it certainly has cleared the air out. So we're doing okay here. Alan David Clark. Hello, hello. Are the snacks ready? Well, I said snacks and human sacrifices. So before the god of snacks will come across with the goods, we're going to need a volunteer. Like I said, check your tickets. You may have the lucky number. Tim, hello. And Tim is also in Ontario. What are you guys doing? You all hiding from me up there? I know Ontario, I mean, I know where it is and everything. I've been there, so it's not the best place to hide from me. Dale, hello, Dale. Good to see you. Timothy, hello, hello. Good evening. And good dancing to us all, indeed. Mark, hello. Yeah, long time. No talk, indeed. Good to hear from you. We think about you a lot. Hope things are going okay for you. Jeremy, hello. It's raining there. Even out-of-towners might consider this rain slightly. Yeah, it's definitely rain. It was just pouring down for a while. As a matter of fact, Johnny the dog went into full protest mode because he hates anything that's pattering on the roof or thunder or what's the word I'm looking for? Precipitating on the deck outside or whatever. He just does not like it. He gets all sad and grumpy, and he comes over and he whacks me with his paw because I'm supposed to do something about it, which, short of having an umbrella the size of a county, I don't know exactly what I could do for him. But he seems to think that if anybody can do something about it, I can, and that therefore I deserve to be whacked with a paw until it stops. Anyway, so yes, Rain, but very welcome. Very welcome. Isaac, hello. Good to see you. Long time. Rook, hey, sweetie. On your way to your pillow. Well, you go to your pillow. This is recorded. If you actually have any interest in it, you can watch it later. And I know you're, 3 hours later there, I think, right? And you're part of that state. I don't know if you want me to give your state out online, which is the only reason I'm not mentioning it. But I know you're on the other side of the country. So, Sean, coffee time in Cambodia. Wow. Is that where you are, or are you just making a general comment that it's coffee time in Cambodia? Either way, pretty cool. And good to see you, Sean. Matthew, thank you for the kind words. I'm very glad you enjoy the readings. I enjoy doing them. Shannon, yay, you can comment. Hello from upstate New York. You'd love to hear me read the phone book. Send me an upstate New York phone book. Who knows? I might really dig Utica. I've always liked Utica. Good name. I hope Utica is an upstate. I think it is. Yeah, of course it has to be. Not quite as upstate as Buffalo, I don't think, but it's upstate. Anyway, hoo-hee-ha, hoo-ha. Louise, hello. Checking in from Quebec. My Canadian homies are checking in tonight. All right, got Ontario, got Montreal. Très bien. Merci beaucoup. And who else have we got? Let me see. Jared, I already said hello to. Isaac, I said. Kristen, I said. Patty Pope, hi, in East Tennessee. Hello, Patty. Good to have you. You know, my family has Tennessee roots. My dad, although he was born here actually, I don't know if he was born here, but he grew up in California. But his mom and dad were from Memphis. And we have family connections in Memphis, although they're quite distant now because my grandmother and grandfather had been out here since like the 40s. But we did meet many members of the family over the years, and we discovered that actually at one point my grandmother's father or grandfather owned like the ugliest house in Memphis, which was right on a main drag. It was called the Frank Hill House, or Frank F. Hill House? Anyway, Frank Hill House. And I found a picture of it online, and it was really just the most bizarre Addams Family looking thing. I mean, it really did look like it could be, the Haunting of Hill House, locale or something. So anyway, but yes, so we're on my dad's side. We have Memphis connections. So good to hear from Tennessee. And who else we got? Rachel. Hello, Rachel. It has been a long time. Rachel is one of my old friends from high school. Well, not old, young as springtime, just like yours truly, but a friend of long duration dating back to high school. So hi, Rachel. Good to see you. Timothy checking in from Alberta. All righty. All good. All right. So good to see. I'm glad my Frostback homies are in the house tonight. And everybody else, of course, too, checking in from all over the place, including Cambodia, it seems, which is, I think, a first, as far as I know, that I've had anybody listening in Cambodia, if Sean is making an accurate remark about his location as compared to a general remark about coffee time in Cambodia. Anyway, okay. Excuse me. I am going to start reading, and I'm going to start reading where I left off. So we have gone from part 1, which is called Simon Mooncalf, to part 2, which is Simon Pilgrim. And we just finished chapter 16, and now we are reading chapter 17, which has the one word or one name title, Binnabik. When Simon at last looked up to the source of the new voice, his tearful eyes widened in surprise. A child was walking toward him. No, not a child, but a man so small that the top of his black-haired head would probably not reach much higher than Simon's navel. His face did have something of the childish about it, The narrow eyes and wide mouth both stretched toward the cheekbones in an expression of simple good humor. "This is not a good place for crying," the stranger said. He turned from kneeling Simon to briefly survey the fallen Cotsman. "It is also my feeling that it will not accomplish much, at least for this dead fellow." Simon wiped his nose on the sleeve of his coarse shirt and hiccuped. The stranger had moved forward to examine the pale arrow, which stood from the tree trunk near Simon's head like a stiff ghost branch. "You should take this," the little man said, and again his mouth widened in a froggy smile, bearing, for an instant, a palisade of yellow teeth. He was not a dwarf, like the fools and tumblers Simon had seen at court and in the main row of Urchester. Although big-chested, he seemed otherwise well-proportioned. His clothes looked much like a rimmersman's, jacket and leggings of some thick animal hide stitched with sinew, a fur collar turned up below his round face. A large skin bag hung, bulging from a shoulder strap, and he held a walking stick that looked to be carved from some long, slender bone. "Please excuse my suggestions, but you should be taking this arrow. It is a sithy white arrow, and it is very precious. It signifies a debt, and the sithy are conscientious folk." "Who are you?" Simon asked around another hiccup. He was wrung out, beaten flat like a shirt pounded dry on a rock. If this little man had come out of the trees snarling and waving a knife, he did not think he could have reacted any differently. "Me?" the stranger asked, pausing as though giving the question much thought. "A traveler like yourself. I will be happy to explain more things at a later time, but now we should go. This fellow," he indicated the woodsman with a sweep of his stick, "will reliably not become more alive, but he may have friends or family who will be unsettled to find him so extremely dead. Please, take the white arrow and come with me." Mistrustful and wary, Simon nevertheless found himself rising to his feet. It was too much effort to not trust for the moment. He no longer had the strength to stay on guard. A part of him wanted only to lie down and quietly die. He levered the arrow loose from the tree. The tiny man was already on the march, climbing back up the hillside above the cottage. The little house crouched as silently and tidily as if nothing had happened. "But," Simon gasped as he scrambled up after the stranger, who moved with surprising quickness, "but what about the cottage? I am so hungry, and there might be food." The small man turned on the hill crest to stare down at the struggling youth. "I am very shocked," he said. "First you make him dead, then you wish to rob his larder. I fear I have fallen in with a desperate outlaw." He turned and continued into the close-knit trees. The far side of the crest was a long, gradual downslope. Simon's limping strides finally brought him abreast of the stranger. In a few moments he had caught his breath. "Who are you? And where are we going?" The strange little man did not look up, but kept his eyes moving from tree to tree, as though looking for some landmark in the unremitting sameness of the deep woods. After 20 silent paces, he turned his eyes up to Simon's and pulled his stretchy smile. "My name is Binnikegabinnik," he said, "but around the cook fire I am called Binnabik. I hope you will honor me by using the shorter version of friendship." I will. Where are you from?" He hiccuped again. "I am of the troll folk of Yikanuk," Binnabik replied. "High Yikanuk in the snowing and blowing northern mountains." "And you are?" He stared suspiciously for a moment before answering. Simon of Urchester." This was all happening rather quickly, he thought, like a marketplace meeting, but in the middle of a forest after a bizarre slaying. Holy Cyrus, did his head hurt, and his stomach too. Where are we going? To my camp, but first I must find my mount. Or rather, she must find me. Please do not be startled. So saying, Benebek put 2 fingers in his wide mouth and blew a long, trilling note. After a moment, he did it again. Remember, do not be startled or anxious. Before he could ponder the troll's words, there was a crackle like wildfire in the underbrush. A moment later, a huge wolf burst into the clearing, bounding past a shocked Simon to leap like a shaggy thunderbolt onto little Benebek, who tumbled end over end beneath his growling attacker. Kantaka! The troll's cry was muffled, but there was amusement in his voice. Master and mount continued to wrestle across the forest floor. Simon distractedly wondered if the world outside the castle was always like this. Was the entirety of Ostenard but a playing field for monsters and lunatics? Benebek at last sat up, Kantaka's great head cradled in his lap. I have left her alone all the day today, he explained. Wolves have much affection, and they become easily lonely. Kantaka grinned hugely and panted. Much of her girth was heavy gray fur, but still she was immense. Make yourself free, Benebek laughed. Scratch upon her nose. Despite the continuing unreality of his situation, Simon did not yet feel quite ready for that. Instead, he asked, I'm sorry, but did you say you had food at your camp, sir? The troll clambered to his feet, laughing, and retrieved his stick. Not, sir, Benebek. And as for food, yes, we will eat together. You, I, even Kantaka. Come along, being deferential to your weak and hungry feeling, I will walk and not ride. Simon and the troll were on the march for some time. Kantaka accompanied them for stretches, but more often trotted ahead, disappearing in a few bounds into the dense undergrowth. Once she came back licking her muzzle with her long pink tongue. Well, Benebek said cheerfully, one is fed already. At last, when it seemed to the aching, dragging Simon that he could walk no farther, when he lost the thread of Benebek's every sentence within a couple of words, they reached a little dell, empty of tree trunks but roofed overhead with a lattice of intertwined branches. Beside a fallen log lay a ring of blackened stones. Kantaka, who had been pacing along beside them, bounded ahead to make a sniffing circuit of the dingle. Bojujik mokunkak, as my people say. Benebek made an expansive gesture around the clearing. If the bears do not eat you, it is home. He led Simon to a log. The youth collapsed, breathing heavily. The troll looked him up and down with concern. Oh, Benebek said, you are not going to be crying again, are you? No. Simon smiled weakly. His bones felt cumbersome as dead stone. I don't think so. I'm just very hungry and tired. I promise not to cry. Look you, I shall make a fire. Then I shall produce a supper. Benebek swiftly gathered a pile of sticks and twigs, hay-ricking them in the middle of the ring of stones. These are spring wood and damp, he said, but luckily that is a matter easily dealt with. Sliding the skin bag from his shoulder, the troll placed it on the ground and began to rummage determinedly through it. To Simon, in his fatigue-born whimsy, the small, squatting figure looked more than ever like that of a child. Benebek stared into his sack with lips pursed and eyes narrowed in concentration. A 6-year-old studying a limping beetle with high seriousness. Ah, said the troll at last, it is found. He pulled from the sack a smaller sack about the size of Simon's thumb. Benebek took a pinch of some powdery substance from it and sprinkled it on the green wood. then took 2 pieces of stone from his belt and struck them together. The spark that leaped down sputtered for a moment, then a slender curl of yellow smoke spiraled up. A moment later, the wood puffed into flame, and within instants, it was a merry, crackling fire. The pulsing warmth lulled Simon, despite the pangs of his empty stomach. His head was nodding. But wait! A rush of fear swept over him. How could he just fall asleep, all unguarded, in a stranger's camp? He should. Sit and be warm, friend Simon. Benedict dusted off his hands as he stood. I will return very quickly. Although a deep unease was fighting to make itself known in the back of his thoughts, where was the troll going? To get Confederates? Fellow bandits? Still, Simon could not muster the effort to watch Benedict leave. His eyes were again fixed on the wavering flames, the tongues like the petals of some shimmering flower, a fire poppy quivering in a warm summer wind. He awakened from a great cloudy emptiness to find the gray wolf's massive head lying across his thighs. Benedict crouched over the fire, fussing at some project. Simon felt there was something slightly wrong about having a wolf in one's lap, but could not find the proper puppet strings in his mind to do anything about it. It didn't seem truly important anyway. The next time he woke, Benedict was shooing Kantaka from his lap to offer him a large cup of something warm. It is cool enough now for drinking, the troll said, and helped Simon raise the vessel to his lips. The broth was musky and delicious, tangy as the smell of autumn leaves. He drank it all. It seemed he could feel it flowing directly into his veins, the molten blood of the forest warming and filling him with the secret strength of trees. Benedict gave him a second cupful, and he drank that too. A dense, leaden clutch of worry at the juncture of his neck and shoulders melted away, swept aside by the rush of good feelings. A new airiness coursed through him, bringing with it a paradoxical heaviness, a warm, diffuse drowsiness. As he slipped away, he heard his own cradled heartbeat, muffled though it was in the tickling wool of exhaustion. Simon was almost certain that when he came to Benedict's camp, it had been at least an hour short of sunset. But when he opened his eyes again, the forest glade was bright with new smithied morning. As he blinked, he felt the last strands of dream pulling free. A bird? A bright-eyed bird in a sun-catching golden collar. An old, strong bird whose eyes were full of the wisdom of high places and broad vision. From his chitinous claw hung a beautiful rainbow-shimmering fish. Simon shivered, pulling his heavy cloak nearer about him. As he stared up at the overarching trees, their budding spring leaves picked out by the sun in emerald filigree, he heard a moaning sound and rolled over on his side to look. Benedict sat cross-legged beside the fire pit, swaying gently from side to side. Before him, an assortment of odd, pale shapes were spread on a flat rock. Bones. The troll was making the unusual noise. Was he singing? Simon stared for a moment, but could not puzzle out what the little man might be doing. What a strange world. "Good morning," he said at last. Benedict jumped guiltily. "Ah, it is friend Simon." The troll grinned over his shoulder and quickly swept the objects into his open skin bag, then stood up and hastened to Simon's side. "How are you now feeling?" he asked, bending over to place a small, rough hand on Simon's forehead. "You must have needed a great sleep." "I did." Simon moved closer to the small fire. "What's that? That smell?" a pair of wood pigeons who have stopped to dine with us this morning. Benedict smiled, pointing out two leaf-wrapped bundles in the coals at the edge of the campfire. Keeping them company are some berries and nuts recently gathered. I would have been waking you up soon to help entertain them all. They are very good tasting, I think. Oh, a moment, please. Benedict walked back to his skin bag, drawing forth two thin packages. Here, he handed them across, your arrow and something else. That was Morganes's papers. You had placed them in your belt, and I feared they would then be broken when you were sleeping. Suspicion flared in Simon's breast. The idea of someone handling the doctor's writings while he slept made him covetous, distrustful. He snatched the proffered bundle from the troll's hand and replaced it in his belt. The little man's cheerful look changed to one of dismay. Simon felt ashamed, although one couldn't be too careful, and took the arrow, which had been wound in thin cloth, more gently. Thank you, he said stiffly. Benedict's expression was still that of a man whose kindness had been scorned. Guilty and confused, Simon unwrapped the arrow. Although he had not yet had a chance to study it closely, at the moment he was most concerned with finding something to do with his hands and eyes. The arrow was not painted, as Simon had assumed. Rather, it was carved from some wood as white as birch bark, and fletched with snow-white feathers. Only the arrowhead, carved from some milky blue stone, had any color. Simon hefted it, weighing its surprising lightness against its amazing flexibility and solidity, and the memory of the day before came back in a rush. He knew he could never forget the feline eyes and disturbingly swift movements of the Scytha. All the stories that Morganes had told him were true. All along the shaft of the arrow, slender whorls, curlicues, and dots were pressed into the wood with infinite care. It's all thick with carvings, Simon mused aloud. They are very important things, the troll replied, and shyly reached out his hand. Please, if I may? Simon felt another wash of guilt and quickly handed him the arrow. Benedict tilted it back and forth, catching the sunlight and firelight just so. This is an old fellow. He squinted his narrow eyes until the dark pupils disappeared altogether. It has been around for quite some time, some long time. You are the holder now of a quite honorable thing, Simon. The white arrow is not given in lightness. It seems that this one was fletched in Pt.19, a Scythy stronghold long since gone, below the blue ice east of my homeland. How do you know all that? Simon asked. Can you read those letters? Some. And there are things an eye that is trained can see. Simon took it back, handling it with a good deal more care than before. But what should I do with it? You said it was payment for a debt? No, friend. It is a mark of a debt that is owing. And what you should be doing is to keep it safe. If it has nothing else to be, it will be a beautiful thing to look on. A thin mist still clung to the clearing and forest floor beyond. Simon propped the arrow point downward against the log and slid closer to the fire. Benedict pulled the pigeons from the embers, pincering with a pair of sticks. He put one bundle down on the warm rock before Simon's knees. Remove the folded leaves, the troll instructed. Then wait for a short passing time, so the bird will slightly cool. It was very difficult to obey the last, but somehow Simon managed. How did you get these? He asked at one point, mouth full and fingers sticky with grease. Later, I will show you, the troll replied. Benedict was picking his teeth with a bowed rib bone. Simon leaned back against the log and belched contentedly. Mother Elijah, that was wonderful. He sighed, feeling for the first time in a long while that the world was not an entirely hostile place. A little food in your stomach changes everything. I am glad your cure was so simple for effecting. The troll smiled around the slender bone. Simon patted his middle. I don't care about anything right this moment. His elbow brushed the arrow, which began to topple. As he caught it and straightened it, a flicker of memory came to him. I don't even feel bad anymore about that man yesterday. Benedict turned his brown eyes to Simon. Although he continued to probe his teeth, his forehead creased above the bridge of his nose. You do not feel bad about him being dead, or about making him dead? I don't understand, said Simon. What do you mean? What's the difference? There is as much difference as between a big rock and a little bug. But I shall leave the pondering to you. But, Simon was confused again. Well, but he was a bad man. Benedict nodded his head, but the gesture carried no suggestion of agreement. This world is certainly filling itself with bad men. Of that there can be no doubts. He would have killed the Scytha man. That is also a truth. Simon stared sullenly at the plundered heap of bird bones piled before him on the rock. I don't understand. What do you want me to tell you? Where it is that you are going to. The troll tossed his toothpick into the fire and stood up. He was so small. What? Simon stared suspiciously as the import of the little man's words caught up at last. I wish to know where you are going, so that perhaps we can be traveling together for a while. Benedict spoke slowly and patiently, as though to a beloved but stupid old dog. I think that perhaps the sun is too young in the sky for the other questions to be troubled with. We trolls say, make philosophy your evening guest, but do not let her stay the night. Now, if my question is not of a too much inquiring nature, where do you go to? Simon rose, knees stiff as unoiled hinges. Again he felt doubt. Could the little man's curiosity really be as innocent as it seemed? He had made the mistake of trusting at least once already with that damnable monk. But what choice did he have? He did not have to tell the troll everything, and it was certainly preferable to have a companion versed in woodcraft. The little man seemed to know just what to do, and suddenly Simon longed to have someone to rely on again. I am going north, he said, and then took a calculated risk. To Naglemund. He watched the troll carefully. And yourself? Benedict was packing his few implements into his shoulder bag. Ultimately, I expect to be traveling far north, he replied without looking up. It seems that we have a coincidence of paths. Now he raised his dark eyes. How strange that you should be traveling toward the Naglemund, which stronghold's name I have been hearing much in recent weeks. His lips quirked in a tiny secret smile. You have? Simon had picked up the white arrow and tried to look studiously unconcerned as he pondered how to carry it. Where? Time there will be for talking as we take to the road. The troll grinned, a full, friendly yellow grin. I must call Kantaka, who is without doubt spreading horror and despair among the rodents of this vicinity. Feel yourself welcome to empty your bladder now, so that we may swiftly walk. Simon had to hold the white arrow between clenched teeth as he followed Binabic's advice. And that's the end of that chapter, but we got lots of time left, so I'm going to start chapter 18, which is called Chapter 18, A Net of Stars. Blistered, sore-footed, and clothed in rags, Simon nevertheless felt the pall of despair begin to lift a little. Both mind and body were badly bruised by mischance, and he had developed a startled eye and reflexive flinch, neither of which escaped the sharp gaze of his new companion, but the brooding horror had been pushed back a short way. It had become, for the moment, just another painful half-memory. The unexpected companionship helped to ease the ache of lost friends and lost home, at least to the extent that he allowed it. A large, secret part of his thoughts and feelings he continued to hold back. He was still suspicious and also unwilling to invest again and risk further loss. As they trekked through the cool, bird-trilling halls of the morning forest, Binabic explained to Simon that he had come down from his lofty home of Ykanuk, as he apparently did once a year, on business, a series of errands that carried him to eastern Hernistir and Erkinland. Simon gathered that it involved some sort of trading. "But, oh, my young friend, what disturbances I find this springtide! Your peoples are very upset, very frightened." Binabic waved his hands in mock agitation. "In the outlying provinces, the king is not popular, is he? And they are fearful of him in Hernistir. Elsewhere there is anger and there is starving. People are being afraid to travel. The roads are being no longer safe. Well," he grinned, "if you wish truth to be told, the roads never were safe, at least in the areas of isolation. But it is real that there is a change for the worse in the north of Ostenard." Simon was observing how the noon sun had set vertical columns of light among the tree trunks. "Have you ever traveled to the south?" he asked at last. "If by south you mean south of Erkinland, my answering is yes, once or twice. But please remember, among my people, almost any leaving of Ykanuk is travel to the south." Simon was not paying very close attention. "Did you travel by yourself? Did Kantaka go with you?" Binabic wrinkled another smile. "No, it was long ago, before my wolf friend was born. When I was—" How did you get this wolf?" Simon interrupted. Binabic gave an exasperated hiss. "It is a difficult thing answering questions when one is having continual interruptions with more questions." Simon tried to look penitent, but he was feeling the spring as a bird feels wind in its feathers. "Sorry," he said. "I've been told before, by a friend, that I ask too many questions." "It is not too many," Binabic said, using his stick to push a low-hanging branch away from their path. "It is piled on top of one and another." The troll barked a short laugh. "Now, which do you want for my answering?" "Oh, whichever you want. You decide," Simon replied meekly, then jumped as the troll smacked him lightly on the wrist with his walking stick. "It would please me your not being obsequious. That is a trait of marketplace people who are selling shoddy goods. I am sure to prefer endless, stupid questions to that. Obsequious, flattering with oiliness. It is not liked by me. In Ykanuk, we say, 'Send the man with the oily tongue to go and lick the snowshoes.'" "What does that mean?" "It means that we do not like flatterers." "Never mind, then." Benedict threw back his head and laughed, black hair swinging, eyes nearly disappearing as his round cheeks rose toward his brows. "Never mind. We have wandered as far as the wandering of lost Pickipeg. Wandered in our conversing, I mean. No, do not ask anything. We will stop here for a rest, and I will be telling you now about how I met my friend Kantaka." They chose a huge stone, an outcropping of granite thrusting up from the forest floor like a speckled fist, its upper half painted by a swath of sunlight. The young man and the troll climbed up to perch on top. The forest was silent around them. The dust of their passage slowly settled. Benedict reached into his bag and produced a stick of dried meat and a goatskin of thin, sour wine. As Simon chewed, he kicked off his shoes and wiggled his sore toes in the warming sun. Benedict looked at the shoes critically. "We shall have to be finding something else." He poked the tattered, blackened leather. "A man's soul is in peril when his feet are hurting." Simon grinned at this thought. They spent a while in silent contemplation of the surrounding forest, the living greenery of Old Hart. "Well," said the troll at last, "the first thing that needs understanding is that my people do not shun the wolf, although we are not usually having friendships with them either. Trolls and wolves have lived side by side for many thousands of years, and we are leaving each other alone most times. Our neighbors, if so polite a term can be used, the hairy men of the Rimmer's Guard, think the wolf a dangerous animal of great treachery. You are familiar with the men of Rimmer's Guard?" "Oh, yes." Simon was pleased to be in the know. "They were all about in the He caught himself. "In Irchester. I have talked to many of them. They wear their beards long," he added, demonstrating his familiarity. "Well, since we live in the high mountains, we Canuck, we trolls, and we do not kill these wolves, the Rimmer's men think we are wolf demons. In their frost-crazy, blood-feuding brains," Benedict put on a look of comical disgust, "it is their thought that troll folk are magical and evil. There have been bloody fights, very many, between Rimmer's men, Kruhok, as we call them, and my Canuck folk." "I'm sorry," said Simon, thinking guiltily of the admiration he had felt for old Dukas Grimner, who, on reflection, did not seem like the type to massacre innocent trolls, testy though he was reputed to be. "Sorry? You should not be. Now, myself, I am thinking that men and women of Rimmer's Guard are clumsy, stupid, and suffer with excessive tallness. But I do not think that they are then evil or deserving of being made dead." "Ah," he sighed, shaking his head like a philosopher priest in a dead-end tavern. "Rimmer's men are a puzzlement to me." "But what about the wolves?" Simon asked, then silently chided himself for interrupting. This time Benedict did not seem to mind. "My people live on craggy Mintahawk in the mountains called Trollfells by the Rimmer's men. We ride the shaggy, nimble-footed rams, raising them up from tiny lambkins until they have enough bigness to bear us through the mountain passes. There is nothing, Simon, that is in this world quite like being a ram rider of Canuck. To sit your steed, to be wending the pathways of the roof of the world, to be leaping in a single bound of greatness across mountain chasms so very deep, so exquisitely deep, that if a rock was dropped by you, it would take half a day to strike bottom." Benedict smiled and squinted in happy reverie. Simon, trying to visualize such heights, suddenly felt a little dizzy and put his palms flat on the reassuring stone. He looked down. This perch, at least, stood only a man's height above the earth. Kantaka was a pup when she was found by me, Bitabik continued at last. Her mother had been killed, or from starvation had died. She snarled at me when I discovered her, a ball of white fur given away in the snow by Black Nose. He smiled. Yes, she is gray now. Wolves, like people are doing, often change their colors as they grow. I found myself touched by her effort at defending. I brought her back with me. My master, Bitabik paused. The harsh cry of a jay filled the moment. My master said, if I would be taking her from the arms of Kinkipa, the snow maiden, then I was assuming duties of a parent. My friends had thought I was not being sensible. Aha, I said, I will teach this wolf to carry me, just like a ram with horns. It was not believed, it was not a thing that had been done before. So many things are things not done before. Who is your master? Below them, Kantaka, who had been napping in a splash of sun, rolled onto her back and kicked, the white fur of her belly thick as a king's mantle. That, Simon, friend, is another tale to tell. Not today. To be finishing, though, I will say that I did teach Kantaka to carry me. The teaching was a very, he wrinkled his upper lip, diverting experience. But there is no regret in me for this. I traveled often, farther than any of my tribesmen. A ram is a wonderful jumping animal, but their minds are very small. A wolf is clever, 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 and they are faithful as a debt unpaid. When they take a mate, do you know, they are taking only one for their entire lives. Kantaka is my friend, and I think her much preferable to any sheep. Yes, Kantaka, yes. The great gray wolf sat up, her wide yellow eyes fixed on Bitabik. She dipped her head and uttered a short bark. You see, the troll grinned. Come now, Simon. I think we should be to marching while this sun stands high. He slid down the rock, and the boy followed, hopping as he pulled on his ruined shoes. I've got about another 2 pages I'm going to read. As the afternoon passed and they tramped on through the crowding trees, Bitabik answered questions about his travels, displaying an enviable familiarity with places Simon had trod only in daydreams. He spoke of the summer sun revealing the gleaming inner facets of icy Mintahawk, like a jeweler's deft hammer. Of the northernmost regions of this same Aldhort forest, a world of white trees and silence and the tracks of strange animals. Of the cold outer villages of Rimmersgard that had barely heard of the court of Prester John, where wild-eyed, bearded men huddled over fires in the shadows of high mountains, and even the bravest of them feared the shapes that walked the howling darkness above. He spun tales of the hidden gold mines of Hernistir, secret serpentine tunnels that wound down into the black earth among the bones of the Granspog Mountains. And he spoke of the Hernistiri themselves, artful, dreamy pagans whose gods inhabited the green fields and the sky and stones. The Hernistiri, who of all men had known the Scythi best. And the Scythi are real, Simon said quietly, with wonder and more than a little fear as he remembered. The doctor was right. Bitabik cocked an eyebrow. Of course Scythi are real. Do you suppose they sit here in the forest, wondering if men are real? What a nonsense. Men are but a recentness compared to them, although a recentness that has terribly damaged them. It's just that I had never seen one before. You had never seen me or my people either, Bitabik replied. You have never been and seen Pedruin, or Naban, or the meadow thriving. Is this then meaning that they do not have existence? What a fund of superstitious silliness is owned by you Erkenlanders! A man whose wisdom is true does not sit in waiting for the world to come at him piece by piece for proving its existence. The troll stared straight ahead, eyebrows knotted. Simon was afraid he might have offended him. Well, what does a wise man do, then? He asked, a little defiantly. The wise man is not waiting for the realness of the world to prove itself to him. How can one be an authority before the experiencing of this realness? My master taught me, and to me it seems chash, meaning correct, that you must not defend against the entering of knowledge. I'm sorry, Benedict. Simon kicked at an oak bowl and sent it tumbling. But I'm just a scullion, a kitchen boy. That kind of talk makes no sense to me. Aha! Quick as a snake, Benedict leaned over and whacked Simon on the ankle with his stick. That is being an example exactly. Ha! The troll shook his small fist. Kantaka, thinking herself summoned, came galloping back to dart in circles around the pair until they had to halt to avoid tripping over the frisking wolf. Hini Kantaka! Benedict hissed. She bounded off, tail bobbing like any tame castle hound. Now, friend Simon, the troll said, please forgive my squeaking, but you have made my point. He held his hand up to stall Simon's question. The youth felt a smile twitching his lips at the sight of the little troll so rapt and serious. First, said Benedict, scullion boys are not from fish spawned or chicken eggs hatched. They can be thinking like the wisest wise folk if only they do not fight entering knowledge. If they do not say, can't or won't. Now, it was explaining that I was going to do about this. Do you mind? Simon was amused. He didn't even mind being struck on the ankle. It hadn't really hurt anyway. Please explain to me. Then let us be considering knowledge like a river of water. If you are a piece of cloth, how are you finding out more about this water? If someone dips in your corner and then pulls it out again, or if you are having yourself thrown in without resistance, so that this water is flowing all through you, around you, and you are becoming soaking wet. Well then? The thought of being flung into a cold river made Simon shiver a little. The sunlight had begun to take a sideways angle. The afternoon was dwindling. I suppose getting soaked might make you know more about water. With exactness. Benedict was pleased. With exactness. Thus you are seeing my lesson point. The troll resumed walking. In truth, Simon had forgotten the original question, but he cared little. There was something quite charming about this little person, an earnestness beneath the good humor. Simon felt himself to be in good, although small, hands. And that's where we're hanging it up for tonight. Just a few minutes past the top of the hour. And I will continue next Sunday at 1 a.m. with Chapter 18, which we have now entered. And with that, I wish to say thank you all so much for joining me. I will see those of you who can make it to the early Sunday morning broadcast, and those of you who do not come to that one, and who wish to return at this time next week, I will see you then. And with that, I say, please take good care of yourselves and take good care of your loved ones, and keep an eye out for the people around you who may not have any loved ones to help them out. And together we will all manage to get through. So again, thank you very much. Appreciate your company, and I will see you very soon. Peace.